So we're going to take a look at adding integers. Now, adding is the process of putting two values together. Okay, and I'm just going to spell that out here. So it's putting two values together. And now what we want to do with adding is we want to try to add all of our, or put together all of our like terms. So in the class, I might say, let's add together the people on the left side of the class with the people on the right side of the class. Okay, and we could figure out the total number of people in class. Now that might seem really basic, but that is the process of adding. Now, when we think of it, basic addition has been taught to us ever since grade 1, or maybe before, depending on kind of when you learned how to add. But adding positive numbers is going to be exactly the same as we've always done. If we have 5 of something and we want to put 3 of something into there, okay, so I'm just going to draw out a little diagram here. We're going to draw out 5 little circles, and then we're going to put together 3 circles. Now this might seem really elementary for some of you. How many total circles are there? Well, we have 8 total circles. Again, very much what you have done for years and years and years. Now, negative numbers is a little bit different. Now, you've probably done this in the past as well, but when adding 2 negative numbers together, it's just increasing the amount of negative. Okay, so we're increasing the amount of negative. So that means that when we put negatives together, if we think of positives as being a filled-in circle, maybe we think of negatives as being an empty circle. Okay, and if we have 2 empty circles there and 6 empty circles here, all we're doing is figuring out how many empty circles do we have. And when we do that, we're left with how many empty circles? Well, there's 8 of them, and empty means negative, and so we're going to get a value of -8. Now you'll notice that I put my negatives into brackets. You don't have to do that, but it just kind of shows that it's a negative number and not subtracting, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Okay. So when we're adding values together, we're adding either positive numbers or negative numbers together. It's fairly straightforward. Just put them all together and come up with a final answer. Now the challenge is when we have to add one positive and one negative value together. Okay? So negative numbers, so we look at here, negative numbers are the opposite of positives. Okay, and I showed you in that description or that diagram there, we had positive numbers which we filled in because they're full, they're positive. And then we have negative numbers which we left as an open circle because they're negative, they're empty. Okay, there's actually, we're taking out that amount. We're not actually leaving that amount in. Okay, so if we think of it, each of the positives will cancel out one negative. Okay, so if we go back to the original one or the previous one here, we have a full circle here and an empty circle. If we were trying to put those two together, we could fill up this empty circle with a positive. But that means that the positive would then disappear. And so it cancels it out. It fills it in. And I'll show you with a diagram in just a little bit. So so again, each positive will cancel out a negative, and when there are no more of one type of number, the remainder, or whatever's left over, and I'm going to say remainder, is our answer. Okay, so let's use that. What we'll do is we'll take a look at that in a diagram type form. So here we have an expression 6 plus -4. So what that means is we're going to have 6 circles which are shaded in right here because they are full, they are positive. And we're going to have 4 circles which are empty because they are negative, they're empty circles. And when we're adding, remember, we're putting things together. So we're taking whatever we have on this side and we're putting it together with the other side. Okay. Now, if we have opposites here, we can actually cancel some out. So we'll notice that this filled circle can fill up this one, and it's going to cancel those out. And this one can fill up here, and it's going to cancel those out. This will fill up here, cancel those out, and this one will fill up here and cancel those out. You'll notice we've canceled out all of the negatives, and we're left with is just 2 positives. So if we have 6 positives and 4 negatives, the 4 negatives are going to cancel out 4 positives, leaving 2 positives left over. Okay? So that would be how we would solve that one there. Now, in this next case here, okay, and this one's going to take a little bit longer because we have more of them, so I'm just going to kind of ramble a little bit. We have 7 positives, which means we have 7 filled circles, and we have 9, see if I can quickly draw out 9 and do it accurately there, 9 negative or empty circles. What that means then is that these 7 filled circles are going to cancel out 7 empty circles and all of the positives because they fill them up, they cancel them out, and we're left with 2 negatives, and that's what's left over. Now, you might kind of recognize or notice that whichever number is bigger, that's going to be the final sign. So in this case here, 6 is bigger than 4, and so because the 6 is positive, our answer is positive. In this case here, the 9 is bigger than the 7. Because the 9 is negative, our final answer is negative. And I'm just going to put that into words here. And so it says, if the positive number is larger than the negative number, the final sum will be positive. Positive. There we go. Okay, so in a good mood, right? If the negative number is larger than the positive number, then the final sum will be negative. Okay, and that should make sense, right? If hopefully none of you are in this situation, but if you have a negative in your bank account and you put some money in there, if it's not bigger than the negative, you won't get into the positives, you'll still be in the negatives. Or let's say if you are in the positives and you're subtracting some money or getting rid of it, okay, adding some negatives, okay, if that negative is bigger than the positive, you're going to go into the negatives and you're not going to stay in the positives. And so that's what we mean by it. So let's do a couple of examples here. All right, really simple example just to start. 6 plus 2, this is 8. They're both positive, so we're just adding more positives. -4 and -7 are both negatives, so we're just adding a bunch of negatives together. So we have 4 negatives here and 7 here, so that's just going to mean that we have 11 negatives. And so our final answer is -11. The next one here, we have 5 positives and 5 negatives. Well, all 5 of these negatives are going to cancel out all 5 of the positives. They're equal, so our final answer is going to be 0. Okay? So if they're the same number, but one is positive and one is negative, they're going to cancel each other out, and we're going to be left with 0. Now, the next one here, if we have -2 and +7, you'll notice that the 7 is bigger, and so we're going to cancel out 2 from the 7, and we're going down. It's a little bit like subtraction. You can kind of think of it like subtraction. We're going to go down 2 because we're canceling out 2 of the 7. And then over here, now this is a similar question to what we had up top, okay, right there, but now they're in opposite order. But that doesn't really matter. We have 9 negatives and 7 positives, meaning that we're going to have 2 negatives left over because these 7 positives cancel out 7 of the negatives, leaving just 2 left over. And so that's going to be our final answer right there. Now, there are a few questions I want you to work on adding positives and negatives together, and those are questions 1 and 2 out of your on your assignment. Number 1 deals with a bit of smaller numbers. Number 2, I've given you a little bit bigger numbers to work on.